this evening. I want to thank the elders for the opportunity and Jeremy for setting this up. We've been friends of Jeremy and Carla for quite a while. My wife couldn't be with me. She has strained a hip and was somewhat immobile. So she's at home, but hopefully you'll get to meet her sometime in the future. It is great to be here. You know, I've never driven up this part of North Georgia, and what wonderful country. I told Jeremy when we were after the meeting in his office, I said, man, this is like the Garden of Eden here, you know. This is just beautiful up here, and to have a family of God here this size in this part of the world is just absolutely wonderful. And I thank you all so much for giving me this tremendous privilege. This is what Peter said. Even though all may fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Now, you know, this is pretty brash by him, because I got to tell you, this was said in light of Jesus already saying, all of you are going to fall away. Well, Lord, I know what you said. You know, everybody's going to fall away, but not me. I thought, you know, that's pretty brash on his part. Jesus makes these words, says these words prophetically, all will fall away, but does not say it pessimistically, because there's going to be a major comeback in time, and Peter was going to be one of them. Stephen Jobert at one time was the professor of New Testament studies at the University of Pretoria in South Africa, and he tells in one of his books, he says, you know, I got a new car. And you know, that's a man's toy, you know, getting a new car. I mean, the smile on the face, just like when they were a boy, when they got their bicycle, you know. And my wife came to me one Saturday and said, I have a problem. And she said, our daughter has to go get her dress from the dressmaker because she's got a Valentine's banquet coming up, and we've got her this new dress, and I've got to find somebody to go take her to the dressmaker so that she can get that final fitting and make sure that it's right. And he said, I'll do it, you know, because he said, I've got my new car, and you know, that wonderful smell. And so here we take off. He says, I'm driving my new car, and she's going to get a new dress. Could it be any happier for father and daughter on a Saturday? He said, we drove up into the driveway, and I said to her, you go in and check on your dress, because I needed important things to do, like play with my new buttons, you know, in my car. And he said, while I was doing that, a young man came up beside me. He was wearing a suit, and he said, initially, I thought he just wanted to, you know, see my new car. And I was ready to show him until I saw the gun. And he said, get out of the car. When he said, get out of the car, I thought for a second he is smaller than me and maybe I can take him. Until the two voices in the back said, you better get out of the car. And two other guys had crawled in the back. And he said, they pulled me out of the car and knelt me down, and I'm facing the house. And the guy got the gun and cocked it and put it behind my head. And one of the guys said, shoot him. And he said, I'm a child of God. He said, but I knew this was my time. He said, I just knew it. And he said, there wasn't so much fear until that one thought came through my mind. I hope my daughter doesn't come out the front door with the dress finished and see me in this situation. He said the guy didn't pull the gun. The last thing he heard was the wheels squealing, and they had hijacked my car. He said they hijacked my car, and that day Jesus Christ hijacked my heart. He says, because I only knew him on an intellectual level. Oh, I could tell you all about New Testament doctrine and all, he says, but in my heart, I wasn't connected. And that was the day that I began this wonderful relationship I have with Jesus Christ. And when I read that story, I thought about Peter. What happened to the guy when you go, the guy that said, I won't deny you. And he says, I know not the man, you know, denies him 3 times, to the guy that said these words in 1 Peter, sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense or to give an answer 1 Peter 3:15. He changed. It was almost like Christ finally hijacked his heart, and he was fully committed to him. And when you read through verse Peter, there's a lot of different directions you can go. But I tell you what, there are some nuggets in that letter that tells you the change that came in him and what it took and then what it produced. So let me share a few things with you tonight because it's a saying we used a long time ago. We don't use it today, but it's kind of walk the talk. Peter said, I didn't do it then, but I'm doing it now. And so the first thing to remember, Peter says, is the process of becoming holy begins in your mind. He says in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13, therefore purpose your minds for action. And he throws down as the following verses several commands like, keep sober, set your hope on grace, don't be conformed, be holy. And what Peter is saying is, listen, you've got all these circumstances around you, you New Testament Christians. The world is changing, you Christians that live in the 21st century. Your society is moving completely away from God. And he says you can rise above the circumstances, but only if you change your mind and your thinking. And he says there are a few things that helps you to do that. Recognize the living hope that you have in him. Praise be to God, 1 Peter chapter 1, first 4 verses. And Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, grace and mercy, he has given us a new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade, kept in heaven for you. A living hope. And I'll tell you what, this is not the hope of the world. This, and I wrote this down here. This is not like wishing upon a star. I hope I win the lottery, or I hope my son straightens out one day, or I hope I keep my job. That's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about this living hope we have in Jesus Christ that comes from his death and his empty tomb, his resurrection. He says, you want to change the way you think? You embrace that. He mentions in verse 4 a permanent inheritance. I'm chuckling because I travel all the time, and it's nothing new because I do a lot of international traveling. Some of it is I've traveled all day, and I get to the hotel, and as I come through the doors, as they slide open before me, I'm just thinking I'm anticipating that lovely hot shower and just to crawl into that bed, and so I go up to the desk, and for most times, what is your name? My name is Mr. Flynn. Mr. Flynn, no problem. Don't even usually ask me for my confirmation number. Here's your keys. Have a great night. Hope you rest well. But there's been a few times that I've come through those doors anticipating what I just described to you, and get to that desk, and that person hears my name and looks at the screen and still gives me a blank stare. And then I give my confirmation number, and they're still, it's not here, Mr. Flynn. Now I know what's going to happen. They're probably going to say, well, we're full, but we've got you booked down some sort of dive 2 blocks down the road, Now, let me just caution us here. This is a perfect time to show that you are a child of God. How are you going to react? What are you going to say? And I've thought about that. And I've acted on that. No, now's not the time to blow up in front of this person who's probably so tired, worked all day, and now you're going to tell her no, or tell him no. The reason I bring all this up is this will never happen to our resurrection in glory, because you see, our resurrection was purchased by Jesus Christ, and our confirmation was made by the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And there will be no celestial receptionist when we approach that'll say, oh, by the way, could you tell me your name again? And Peter says, I have this permanent inheritance and I have this living hope, and that's why I live the way that I live now. I'll tell you what it motivates you to do. It produces an appetite for doing good. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17, he says, show proper respect to everyone. Love the brotherhood of believers. Fear God. Honor the king. What is he telling us to do? He's telling us to be model citizens, not social rebels and misfits. What was going around at that day and time was what was the talk where these Christians, they have this king, and you know what I think they want to do? I think they want to overthrow our king, Caesar, and what they want to do is cause this rebellion, and which is not true. And he says, by being a model citizen, literally the translation is you muzzle them. You stop them from talking like that by the way that you treat them, each other, and the higher authority, as Jesus said, read unto Caesar, which is Caesar's. He says in 2:15, for such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Doing good. A church makes a great impact in a community when we do good. When we see a need in a community and we meet that need, whether there's been a storm come through, or whether a family has lost their home through a fire, or whether parents have been killed and there's orphans just there by themselves. You do tremendous good, but that also provides you an opportunity to also share Jesus Christ. But just the fact that you do good gives you a good name in the community, and it's important. One of the things that we do in Africa, and my wife and I work in Africa the last 10 years, and one of the things that we do that makes the impact for us in Africa is to drill water wells. You see, this particular place right here, we're just about to do a well, because you see, these girls have to walk. They got to walk 3 miles to go get water every day. That takes 4 hours to get all their water, which means they don't get to go to school anymore. So they get their education taken away because they have to spend their lives getting water. And look at the water that they're going to get. 3 hours round trip to go get water like that. That's why the life expectancy is 37 years, roughly about that, because of all the waterborne diseases. That's a dry riverbed, and that's animal feces. You see those little pieces all around there? So what we do is we will come in there, and we'll plant a church, and then we will bring water. And we bring clean water. And anybody can use that water. And we'll bring in a team to teach drip irrigation. And they will then grow their fresh vegetables. And you know what? We grow the fresh vegetables on the church property because we have people from the community that we will invite. They don't have water. Come and grow vegetables with us. And you got a brother and sister, and you got the neighbor, and they planting cabbage together, planting tomatoes. And then they start talking about all kinds of things, even heavenly things. Things change. Doing good. And every day that pump pumps water, and it will every day because it's a hand pump, it doesn't rely on power, there are opportunities to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Or we collect clothes in Africa. Well, we don't collect clothes in Africa. We ship them to Africa. But I have found a country called the United States that has all kinds of clothes. And I have a generous people that give their clothes. In fact, I'll tell that most of the clothes that we get, the higher percentage of clothes, we get clothes, men, children, but as women. And I say to the women, would you spring clean your closets and give us your clothes and go shop again? Come on. And we ship those containers over there, and one container, 40-foot container, 1,250 boxes, we'll share it with 15 churches who share with their communities. Right now, we're collecting 10,000 pairs of shoes, and we've already singled out 5,000 children that do not have any shoes right now. So, and then we feed orphans too. There's Hungry there. Now, maybe not here, but we have Hungry there. And that little boy, I want you to know, he put it up, and he only put it down when it was done. It just took one time. I just love that. I just love that picture. But the doing good, that's what we are. That's what motivates us. And we feed about 1,200. But he has another point here too, Peter does. And he says, I'll tell you what, when your life changes, listen to what he says, 1 Peter 4, 2 and 3, and I'm reading from the New American Standard Version for this particular verse. So as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the lusts of men, but for the will of God. In fact, another translation reads, you won't spend the rest of your version reads, you will not spend the rest of your lives chasing your own desires, but you will be anxious to do the will of God. What do you mean? I mean, I'm in my late teens and I'm in my early 20s. I shocked the pagan crowd. What do you mean by that? I mean, I don't do sexting. I don't hook up in high school or college. That's not why. I don't go get drunk on the weekends. That's not what I do. It's got nothing to do with my age. It's got to do with my transformation. Because that passage in Romans 12 has really grabbed my heart at a young age. That I'm going to present my body every day as that living sacrifice, and it's for God. You know, this guy right here on the right is a young man that came to Heritage Christian University, used to be International Bible College. And Haley came over here, and I love him and the stories about the other guy, but I just got to tell you, this is some of the people we're working with. He came over here for 6 years, and his father said to him, you got to come back. You're not going to stay in the States. You're going to come back. And he kept that promise, and he lived with us for part of the time because he got a degree at Heritage, and then he got a secular degree in computer science from University of North Alabama, and he stayed with us. He was here 6 years, and there was all kinds of young ladies that wanted to date him. And he said, no. He said, I'm going home. So I need to marry somebody in Africa. And he did, and he found an awesome wife. My point is that during our relationship year, I said, Haley, when you get back, let's partner together. And so we partner together. And one of the things that we do is drilling those water wells. He plants churches too, but we do the water wells. And so I said, find a guy that we can rely on, because it's $6,000 to do a well. And so you need to find somebody that's going to be honest and truthful. And we have done 65 wells. So he finds this guy 7 years ago, Christopher, who's standing next to him there. And Christopher says, let me tell you, I'm not interested in religion. I like to live my life. And what he meant is, you know, I like on the weekends, if I want to have my beers, I want my beers. And if I want to go to the nightclub, I'll go. But he said, I love what you guys are doing, and I will help you. And we knew he was real. All the feedback we got is this guy knows his stuff when it comes to drilling wells. And so we latched onto him. And through the years, Haley would say, this happened at church. Or Haley would say, oh, God has blessed us with a son, and we're so thankful to him, and we're going to have a special service to thank God. We'd love for you to come. He didn't come. But Haley would just mention different things, you know. Well, I want you to know that last March, Sunday morning, he just walks into church, and he sits down, and Haley comes to him, and he says, okay, I'm ready to become a Christian. So let me just say, don't ever give up, okay? Nobody's a lost cause. It's how we approach sometimes, but nobody's a lost. And now he was baptized that day, and we had a team from Jackson Christian, and the president of Jackson Christian immersed him into Christ. And you talk about shocking his world. Those guys at the nightclub, and those guys, no, I don't do that anymore. What's happened to you? I mean, they were just blown away because he was the one guy that preached, I don't want anything to do with religion, you know? And it changed. And can you imagine this guy that denies Jesus Christ 3 times, and now he is turned around and the proclaiming that he's doing? That's what God does to us, transforms us, no matter where we are. Don't ever think that you are too far from God that he can't reach you. That's an impossibility if you are willing to come to him. I think our challenge must be that we don't live BC, which is before Christ. We live AD. That's after Christ. That's who the people we are. One final thought, and that is that you are in good hands. He says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 6 and 7, so humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time he will lift you up in honor. Give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares about you. He cares about you. So it makes me chuckle. So this is my youngest son, Landon. This was taken several years ago. Landon's married now. But I have a friend that has a wildlife park. You can look it up online. It's Antelope Park. And he raises lions amongst many other things and puts them back into the wild. And so Landon spent a summer with him. And of course, my wife was very nervous, you know. I mean, she grew up in North Alabama, you know, baby deer and possum, you know, I didn't grow up that way. So I wanted him to interact with the wildlife of Africa. And I said, he'll be all right. So he was working with young lions like that. They'd go on walks. And he told me one day, he says, you know, those lions right there, you know, they're about 7 months, 6 months old, you know. And he said that there was a buddy of this friend of mine, Andrew Connolly's who owns the Antelope Park. His buddy came with his Rottweiler one day. He was in the back of the Jeep. Well, the Rottweiler got out, and those lions were walking. Andrew was walking with them. And there was about 4 lions. And then when that Rottweiler approached those lions ran up to him, and they still act like kittens. They weren't trying to eat him, but they were just knocking him, playing with him like a toy. They'd knock him to one lion, and the other lion would knock the Rottweiler to another. Yeah, bad Rottweiler, isn't it? Landon said, finally, I had to go pick the Rottweiler up, you know, to stop it from being injured. Well, one day they were moving fully grown lions out of a cage into another cage. And so they darted this fully grown lion, about 300 pounds. And so Landon and 2 of the workers went in the cage. And as they got into the cage, the lion got up. And Landon said, I just froze. I couldn't do a thing. And the lion took like a step and then fell down. I guess it took a while for for it to react. And so when I came to pick up Landon told me the story. One of the workers said, Oh, Mr. Flynn, we would have never let anything happen to Landon. We would have, yeah, right. Never. I don't know if he was really in good hands. But I tell you what, it doesn't matter what happens to us in this life or how long our journey is. When we give our lives to Jesus Christ, we are absolutely safe in his arms. We have a security and assurance. You know, I just finished writing a blog, and I titled it Home Away from Home. And I said, I love living here. I wished I had written it after I came to Elijay. But I talked about the different places in the world that I've gone and experiences I've had. And I said, you know, I love living on earth. But it's just my home away from home. One final story and I will end it. I want you just to get to know this couple a little bit. This is the Vimbers. And I told the elders when I met with them this afternoon that this guy right here was a successful businessman, and he had a lot of buses, and he sold them so he could come to International Bible College. He had seen this paper, World Evangelist, and he wanted, and was advertising International Bible College, now Heritage Christian. And he said, I said to Austin, well, I mean, you sold your buses, you know? He said, what I did with is I went to my wife, Miriam, and I said, Miriam, I've left enough money for you and the kids. I want to go. I bought a round-trip ticket, and I'm going to go to IBC for a year. I've paid for that, and I believe God will take care of us after that. And God did, and he came home, and he planted a church in a high-density area of about 1.6 million. And the church grew to over 500, and then it would go down to 300, and then it'd come back up to 5, and then it'd go down to 250, and then it would come back up. And all the time he was planting new churches from what we would call the Jerusalem church, as it were. And they planted 15 that way, and right now the church is 350 already. Still, I mean. He was told me he was going to be at a wedding, and he loved to do weddings. And so I flew back that March, and the wedding was the first week of April, and he went and did the wedding. They were at the reception, and he asked the song to be sung in Zulu, their native language, that talks about how the couple must give their lives to God and make sure God is in their journey. And when they finished singing the song, he sat down, and he put his head on a brother's shoulder, and he passed away. And so I flew back for the funeral. There was over 3,000 at his funeral. I think it's probably the biggest funeral I've ever been to for a minister of the Churches of Christ. And at that funeral, when I'd finished speaking, they said, we're going to let everybody come forward and we'll open up the casket and you can look, but you can't stay because there's so many. 50 miles out of town, we're going to bury the body. By the way, the procession was 2 miles long, buses and cars going out there. And so as they started coming up, about 20 men got up and stood behind me. I wasn't expecting this. And they started singing. And I mean, they didn't stop. They went from one song to the other. They didn't even take a break. For 45 minutes, I told my wife, I said I could have stood there the whole day because they were right behind me, that tenor, that bass, that passion, you know. And they were all men that he had taught and mentored, and they were all ministers of the gospel. I don't know, he had a high profile, and he used it. But God gives us all talents and abilities. Peter, let me tell you, you're going to deny me. But I tell you what, if you will take a real good look at me and drink me in you, this living water, I tell you what, you're going to do amazing things in the years to come. So I say it prophetically, but I don't say it pessimistically. And God says that to all of us, that we all use whatever we have to glorify him. Some of us will have a high profile, some of us won't, but in every way we can glorify our God. And so we come here every Sunday through God, Jesus' resurrection, and we remember the victory that we have in him, and we are challenged every Monday morning to go out and whatever little thing that we can do or big thing that we imagine it is, to make an impact. Paul wrote to the Galatian brethren, for as many of you as have been baptized into Christ, Galatians 3:27, have put on Christ. I know we get wet when we get baptized. That I know. But that's not the point. I know it's immersion. But it's about, for as many of you who have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ, to live his holy life, to do what he wants. That's our purpose. If there is a song that I know we're going to sing a song here, and I just want you to know that if you need help in any way to come to the Lord or just to be encouraged, won't you come as we stand and sing?
I am resolved no longer to linger, charmed by the world's divine. Things that are higher, things that are lower, these have allure my sight. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. I am